Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, crypto traders around the world. I have another update for you for ParaToken, formerly known as ParaEmu, as I'll refresh you first, and now I'll update you on what's happening or what I've found and my thoughts on it and what I think it means. First of all, just to refresh on how we got to this point, ParaToken, I covered them on the main podcast. Of course, that's cryptotalkradio.net. If you want to listen to that episode way back in the archives. And at the time, I've said, and I continue to say, it is probably one of the most beautiful projects. And that was V1, one of the most beautiful projects I had seen. And I was very bullish on it. And I continue to be bullish on what it's built to do. And so when I first saw it, it was significantly up from where it is now, by far. And I bought my initial bag and I stacked more and I stacked more until I got to a bag number that was sufficient for me, knowing that I could just wait it out because there was nothing I could fundamentally see wrong with the token contract. And the devs appeared to have the right message. So I was confident giving them my money. It wasn't like they didn't seem scummy, they didn't seem scammy, they didn't seem like trying to rip it off. I believe they're based out of Fort Collins, which is a place I used to live. I actually worked for the county out there. So I knew that there's at least some credibility where I wasn't as worried about giving them money, to the point that at the time it was, a moderate amount of money. But as of right now, because of the change in my investment strategy, it's the only project right now where I purposely left it there, because what happened is they had the V1, and I'll back up the story in total because it doesn't matter at this point. And I want to make sure that I clarify past points. They had the V1. The V1 was what it was. It was spiking like crazy when it first launched. Like, we're talking, liberal financial levels of growth. We're talking ETH fan token type growth, just outrageous levels of growth. And then it tapers off like it's supposed to and consolidates. And everything was still cool because people were actively buying and selling, and it was a healthy state. Then on social media, I did my coverage and I shared my episode saying, I love this project and I'd love to talk to the developers because I want to dig a little bit more about this. And what then happens when I send this out, I put an to the official account because I want them to see it. And then they completely ignore me. But then almost immediately after this, I see that there is this message from the official talking about, we're gonna try to get Jake Gain to do an AMA with us, and then we're gonna try to get, you know, Del Crypto and all these other shillers. I'm talking true shillers, the one that don't really care about you, don't care about your project. And I remember Del Crypto in particular was right there as one of the ones who was really hard pressed pitching it. And to me, I knew there was an issue because all the ones that do the shillers, it's like that it never works out. It's not the right answer. It's never worked. If you go to, which is not on YouTube, but on cryptotalkradio.net, and if you notice a pattern, it's because I am trying to steer you to subscribe to the podcast because that's where you're going to get the good stuff. I had an interview with Mr. Josh Segala, and Mr. Segala even called out, when you go after the shillers, they don't really care about the project and they'll just basically dump on you. It spikes and then they'll dump on you. Well, I already had known this prior. I knew this was a likelihood because I saw a pattern with the Schiller based projects that none of them seemed to be able to get out of first base. So I immediately was nervous and I reached out to that account and I said, please don't do this. Please don't do this. They totally ignore me. So I go to the Telescam group because I'm trying to cut this off. Not only am I concerned as an investor, but I'm concerned because I like the project. It's like, come on, this is I saw gold. I still see gold. Why you would do this? You should succeed on your own. And if you listen to some of my past YouTube updates, this is where now it spills over. I've said it's like succeed on your own. You don't need it. Succeed on your own. That's what's going to appeal. I go to the Telescam group. In the Telescam group, I repeat what I said and I caveat that, I'm not going to sell because I like what the project's doing, but I can't justify buying any more while you're chasing shillers. I need to see that you succeed on your own merits. And I got attacked. Almost everybody in that room attacked me completely, blistered as like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just a fudder and I'm this, that, and the other. I said, look, you know what? I don't want to be disruptive. I don't want to if you want to just keep with what you're doing, fine. I'll just leave. I'll be the bigger man and I'll just leave. And so I left and I hadn't noticed it because I was out of the room. But I tried to go back later to just kind of get some updates, and turns out I'm banned from the room. How do I know I'm banned? Because when you go into Telegram, all you see are initials of what the room name would have been, and you click it and it says this chat's not available. That's how you know you're banned and you can't access it. So I message on Twitter again, say, hey, I'm banned from the Telescam. I said Telegram, but I'm banned. I don't know why. Totally ignore. So the Twitter account's like useless to me, despite the fact that I'm putting them over and I'm giving them positive coverage at no charge, I might add, and I'm not getting any traction. Okay, so then I just kind of marinate it and watch. Next thing I know, the freaking, they start doing the migration thing. They're talking about doing the V2, and we're going to migrate to V2, and it's a new contract. And Delph Crypto was right there, and he was hyping it right at that point. Turns out they had compensated the shillers, as is par for the course, and the Shillers did exactly what Mr. Segala had warned, which was almost immediately after V2's release, we saw some buys, and then immediately it starts dumping. It starts just tanking their cells like crazy. That don't make sense. They don't make any sense. I got a crazy amount of freaking reflections off how much cells there were, like billions and billions of tokens, because for whatever freaking reason, there was just all these cells, and I didn't understand what the heck was going on. I can't get in the Telescam, so I can't see what they're talking about, but I'm assuming that there's some fundamental problem. I'm assuming I didn't think it was a rug pull, but I assumed something went wrong somewhere. I can't get any information because the Telescam's got me blocked. I'm not seeing much on Twitter that's of any use. So, I ultimately get frustrated and say, you know what, let me just check the freaking Discord. And I don't like Discord either, but I like Discord better than Telescam because at least Discord's, friendly to Americans and isn't for hiding tracks. But I go to this was today now, fast forward, and I go into the Discord, and it's like a totally different world, even though you have some of the same people, there's some overlap. It's a totally different world. It's a lot quieter. You don't have let's fucking go and a bunch of images of Mia Khalifa looking at green bars and all this garbage that you see in the Telescam, right? So, I was chatting with somebody and they're a regular investor. It was not one of the admins, but I'm going back and forth, and basically I say somebody had asked the question, hey, was this rug pull? And this is freaking me out because when you get to the point that investors think it's a rug pull, they're going to avoid it like the plague. And this is what I suspected was happening is whatever happened that caused those sales, people are now FOMO. They're nervous. They think something's wrong. And you have to allay that concern. And I knew that, but I can't tell them because they blocked me from the freaking Telescan. So I'm chatting with this investor, and we're going back and forth. And initially, thought I was being rude. I'm being straight up. I just said, "Look, we got to stop banning people from Telescam. First of all, second, we got to stop going after shillers." Like I'm breaking down all the same things I've said on my various shows about ego and about the getting triggered and the problems with Telescam and many of the devs where they're disconnected from. Hey, look, we're trying to help you here, and they go after shillers. Like I just break down everything I've said. It's consistent with everything I've said over time because I'm trying to at least outline the message. I like the project. So then this person asked, and I believe it's female, asked, do you have the token? Yeah. How long you been holding? Since V1. And if you didn't know, I've had a bag since I would say it had to be like 4 days after V1's launch. I bought in right when that bad boy launched because I saw the tokenomics. I saw the contract. I loved everything about it. I loved everything about their message. I loved everything about the way they presented themselves. I loved the fact that you could see who the people were behind the project. I thought their white paper was crap, but that's because I'm very specific about my rubric. I think it's a garbage white paper, but to me, that's okay. We should work on the white paper to fix it. Regardless, I still bought because I saw that the project's fundamentals were just so sound from what I could tell. So I bought a bag, and then I bought another bag, and then I bought another bag, with my goal being that I wanted a certain number of tokens or greater, and I hit that threshold, and it cost me a pretty penny. I think I spent almost close to $150. And you might think, well, that's not a lot. It is a lot when you think about not knowing. We're talking 3 days after launch. So there's no confidence. There's no certainty. There's no way to know if this thing's gonna pull on me. I just had confidence that it likely wouldn't. But in my initial coverage, which again, cryptotalkradio.net, if you want the good stuff, I called out. I believe that they might have renounced too soon. I believe that they're going to probably have to do a migration. What happened? V1 has to go to V2 because there's things they can't do because it's locked, it's renounced. So I had already predicted certain things that were red flags, but I was ready for them and I was okay with it. And then they did pretty flash, I would say pretty quick migration V1 to V2 with people. And the real trigger was they had sent out a flyer on social media telling people, but the way that they did the flyer, you if you listen, I believe it's on one of my YouTube episodes, I called out that the way the flyer is built, the way it looks, creates a sense of false urgency because it lets you think that if you don't do this, you got to do this, red alert, you're going to be left behind, which happens with a lot of tokens. And I said, I think there was not enough time allowed, and we should have had more lead time so that we could get more announcements out. And we need to use, as I've said with ETH fan token, we need to do a better job of using all our social media to make sure the word gets out clean. As a result, on one of the calls around the migration, there was a girl talking about, I sent my ETH to the freaking contract address because she was rushing, because her friend called her in a panic, thinking she was about to lose her bag, when really there was nothing to worry about because the ParaToken team took care of the migration for them. Like, do you see? It was just that we're rushing, and we don't need to rush because you already had a plan to drop them the tokens anyway. You didn't need them to take an action, and you could have framed that flyer in such a way that it would have created that urgency. And that just goes to how you write and how you do it. And that's all marketing. And I wanted to help with those suggestions, but because I was ignored, I couldn't get in front of it to help them. And I'm getting increasingly more frustrated because I'm being ignored by the official account and I can't get in a Telescam. So I'm telling this person in Discord all this, hey, this is what's going on. So then some of the, and they're actual admins, right? Admins of the chat of the Discord, and they're also in Telescam. And they chime in and they're basically saying, we do like feedback. We want the feedback. We've taken feedback from the community before. And I'm telling them, I got straight banned. I told people I'm not going to buy if you keep going to Schillers, and they banned me from the room. And they said, well, that's not our policy. I said, that's cool, but I got banned. You can go look in the list. I'll give you the name. And you can see I was banned from the thing. And if you go back in that chat, you will see no evidence at all that I did anything but say, I am not going to buy more as long as you keep going after Schillers. Turns out, here's the pitch, here's the punchline. Turns out they had gone after Schillers, a certain set of Schillers that were recommended to them. So somebody else in some measure of influence recommended to them to go to these Schillers. And that's what started it. The Schillers, they received tokens as compensation apparently, and then sold. They basically rugged it. Like, that's what I was feared, as they say, would happen, because it's like that's the problem with Schillers. And I'm again, I draw a clear line when I say Schiller. I'm talking about the ones that don't care about you. They don't care about you. They don't care about the project. They take the compensation and they move on to the next. That's what I'm talking about. Not the ones who take it and they fairly cover it. They provide fair and neutral, mostly neutral coverage, fundamental coverage like Believes does. So I had a suspicion with the names they were rattling off. First of all, the first one I saw on the list that they were going after an AMA is the same dude that was, and you can go back and everybody on social media said it. He was the main reason that Satama started dumping, because they were so pissed off at what he did at the failed Vegas event on November 13th. And now they're going after him again, and a lot go after him, even though he was almost directly responsible for significant drops on Satama. And now everybody else that's gone to him, those tokens have dropped. Well, we see that apparently those Schillers sold. They sold it off because they didn't care about the project. They didn't care about the investors. They didn't care about the impact of the investors. And that's the problem. And because one of the things I would have advocated, first, I say don't go to Schillers at all. And the reason is because your mechanics don't allow you to prevent that crap from happening. If you have a token that says we have a lockup period, so we're going to issue the tokens, but they're on a mandatory, 6-month lock, right? They're locked in a staking thing, locked for 6 months, so you can't withdraw them. They're yours, but that you can't withdraw them out. Okay, I can probably support that to some degree, but because they're forced to stay, they're forced to do that. On the flip, I don't want them to be compensated when they don't give a crap about the project. They don't give a crap about the investors. That's always been a beef of mine. I don't like to see people who don't care about the investors, but at least they're not negatively impacting the investors. I can live with it. But no token has that kind of structure. None of them have that kind of function. And I think that's what they should have. If you're going to compensate somebody for a service, I don't think they should be able to sell immediately. Put it in a lockup, something like Everrise's tool. Everrise's tool, it's optional, but Everrise's tool has a function where you can stake your tokens for up to like 11 months or something. And then, of course, you get more rewards and the APY goes up and Maybe something where it's a mandatory thing. We put it in the staking pool for you. You can't sell it. You can't withdraw it for the duration of that period so that people are not negatively impacted. Then, on top of that, you do the vesting that EarnHub tried to do to where once you can sell, you can only sell in parts and chunks to do everything you can to make sure they can't just completely dump. They'll sell, but you're going to wait to get that. I know why they didn't do it and why so many tokens don't, because the shillers basically run the game. They run the whole battle and they dictate the terms and say this is what my turn is. So that's why I don't want them to go to shillers, because I know the shiller is going to dictate terms that are damaging to the investor long term, and I never want to see that. That's why I don't like them, because we know they do that and they do it every single time. So now I got banned from Telescam for trying to warn them about something that ended up happening because they had banned me, and thus they didn't listen to me when I tried to warn them this is a bad idea. Please don't do this. If you do this, it's going to be a problem. Don't do it. Please do not do it. And they just ban me because it got triggered, because they think I'm fudding when really I'm trying to help them, because I'm an investor, number one. And number two, it's obvious. We saw multiple tokens. People are getting smarter about shillers, I think. True shillers. They're getting smarter about it. They're looking for more fundamentals. They're looking for more honest coverage. They're looking for the goods and bads. They're looking for tokens to want the smoke and come on shows like mine and talk it out. We just saw Satama go up on the show with what is it, Sandstorm, I believe it is, and listen, I think Sandstorm, the person, Sandstorm asked a little bit softball. He asked some hard, but I think he was a little soft. Dude, crypto realist, Jeremy, perfect. Hard hitting questions, pin it down, get a straight answer out of the guy. Yes, and Russ, to his credit, took most of it on the chin. I just, again, it was a little bit softball from Sandstorm. That's okay, but I think this neutrality, that kind of coverage, that's how you're going to engender trust in investors. Now we're past the era of the SHIB where you can cheat and get there easy off the backs of simple mechanics. You got to kind of be a little bit willing to take it on the chin. And that means that, hey, you got to be taken out of your comfort zone. Because once you're out of your comfort zone and you're honest, I think your investors respect that. But if you just go on the ones that are just going to say everything you want to hear, now it's a lack of trust, because it's like, why are you going after those same people, especially this dude who just trashed the Tom over there, and he could trash this one the same way? How do we know he's not going to go on the show and get drunk again and ask for drinks and all this? Like, that's, we have to understand the mind of a casual investor. We have to appreciate that that is the kind of sentiment damage that can happen based on who you choose. These guys have damaged their reputation to a significant degree. So I struggle with why we keep going after them. Del Crypto just got done with Lily Finance. He was in front of that. He's apparently associated with them in some professional forum. And then what happens? Lily Finance, I don't think it's a rug pull. I don't think it's a scam. I think they rushed the dang contract out and didn't take the time to do due diligence. And whoever they got working the contract doesn't know what the heck they're doing. That's what happened there. Unfortunately, they allowed people to get in early who then bought in and then dumped on them, which one of them was likely Del Crypto. I go on an AMA, guy says, "You're canceled, bro." He's not canceled. He's going to keep doing it, and the tokens will keep going after him. That's what I'm trying to stop. And I will use my platform to say, I want the tokens to stop using these guys. They don't care about you. They never have. So stop doing it. Let them create a token, if they're really that serious, with all the money they stacked, and advertising themselves. But stop using them to show your tokens, please. And so, I think it was a good back and forth with, the people in the Discord, completely different than what happened in the Telescam. And they unlocked me on the Telescam, and I confirmed I can get back in, and I can see it's still the same thing with Mia Khalifa and the green bars, and I can mostly ignore it. It's just the pinned messages might be of importance. But the Discord is quiet and it's peaceful, and there's not much to it, and I can tolerate it for what it is, for getting these basic announcements, because again, I'm still a supporter of the project. I like the project and I want it to succeed, not just as an investor, but somebody who does this. And I want other people to see how beautiful of a contract is, because I do think it's beautiful. I will still maintain my honest stance about what I don't like about it. I don't agree with going after NFTs as the first foremost, because I think everybody's doing it and it's played out. I think they should focus on the core message. And I've invited them on the show. You've heard me at least 4 times to talk and explain, to say, look, these are things, these happened, and this is what it is. Now, the devs and the admins appear like they are separated. They're not directly correlated, and the devs don't go to the online nearly as much as I think they should, and it's mostly left to the admins. That's okay. The admins are generally good people. You got a couple of rogue, triggered folks, but generally they're okay people. But I think the devs need to be, I covered that on a past episode too. I think the devs need to be just as involved and engaged in the online as the actual admins. I think ultimately there should be involvement from them directly so that we can hear the message straight from the wolf's mouth and that we can say, and ideally counter back and say, here's the tough questions we want to ask you, dude, about these decisions that were made. And we need you to explain why this makes any sense. And we have some suggestions as to why this thing is not going where it should go. And believe me, I've got at least 5 or 6 that I can think on the top of my head that I won't spoil here. But I get frustrated again when a project I'm in, number one, but also a project that I see so much potential makes bad decisions that, and we're repeating bad mistakes that so many other tokens have made. Do you know, as a listener, how many tokens have done those initial spikes and they've banged down and they've never recovered? Mononoke, Shirio, Shaman King, Crypto Cowboy, Satama, Impact to some lesser degree, Baby Doge, deep, 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 deep. You know, it's like a pattern now. Luffy, it's a pattern. They're all doing the same thing. Do you know what the common pattern is for all those? Each and every one of those at some level used a shiller. So I am drawing a correlation. Do I have proof? No, I don't claim to. I'm drawing a correlation because I don't. At some point, it's somebody's got to stand up and say, you know what? Let's not do this. There's got to be something different. We've got to do a better job. There has to be a better way to do this, and we don't have to go this route. And the token that I was going to have on the show, and they no showed the second time, and the investor that told him to come on the show is pretty pissed off, and I don't blame him. Uh, I'm kind of upset too because it takes me time to get ready to be on the show for video purposes. Audio I can do whatever, but there's a video so we can see each other. And for whatever reason, they didn't show again. So I don't know if they're forgetting or they're just not wanting to do it. Regardless, they also use shillers. Their tokens down, their tokens trending down after initial pumps and then drops. It's the same thing. So at some point, man, there's got to be a recognition of why this doesn't make any sense. And this is what I wanted to advocate for ParaToken. But in summary, yes, I got back into Telescam. They unlocked it and I was back in there and it's fine. So I can at least get updates on what's going on with the thing. And I've offered again for them to come on the show. And look, I'd love to smoke. If they're willing to come on the show and have the chat, I am not. I am a straight shooter in a world of sensitivity. I'm not going to soft touch it. At the same time, I think you would agree. Of if you listen to this entire episode for this 23 minutes I've been talking, I think you would agree. I've been pretty mindful and respectful in the way I express it to the point that I actively work not to swear because I'm not pissed. I'm frustrated. There's a difference. I'm frustrated because I could have helped stop it if it weren't for a triggered dev. And that's sad. We shouldn't be in this world. That would not be acceptable. This is Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Chase or any big, real, reputable company. This would be acceptable that we could just ban a person and ignore them and go on, whatever the heck. Could you imagine that John Stumpf idiot off Wells Fargo and you have a whistleblower and that whistleblower, which actually happened, by the way, the whistleblower gets completely deleted and banned and canceled and muted and all that stuff, only to find out, no, what they're saying is true. And he was doing this crap and he lied in front of Congress and all this, only to get let off scot free. No, he, he had to pay a little bit of money. But with crypto, we just take it for granted that we could just ban them and mute them and delete them and call them FUD when we're telling the truth. Why is that acceptable? It's not. And so it's an impassioned plea, not just to ParaToken, but to every token. Please stop using shillers. It doesn't help you. And I'm talking about true shillers. I'm talking about the ones that don't give a crap about your project. Those are the ones I'm talking about. And guess what? They all are the same group of people that you've heard about because chances are, if somebody recommended them to you that was not an investor of yours, they're probably not any good. And I've even seen in some chats, I just saw in green chat, in green chart rather, they did a poll about what they should do with this excess money that they were going to put back in the thing. And vast majority of the people there said, no, put it all to marketing. Why would you do that? You just had a serious issue and you didn't compensate the investors. You had mods telling people to sell. when they did, and then they stacked bags and then they benefited off the backs of that bad advice. No, you should compensate all the investors that you screwed over, every last one of them. You go to the records of anybody who ever held green chart, anybody who ever staked green chart, and you compensate them all. Yes, that's a lot of money. That's what I think you should have done. That's the point. No, we should not go after influencers, quote unquote, or shillers, quote unquote, when you've had issues. I certainly don't want to see it when you're new. I would rather see you succeed on your own. And I would rather see you create some strong fundamentals to where you can succeed on your own. Now, there are tokens out there that have been, subject to shillers and they've managed to pull it out. But the difference there, folks, those like an Everrise, for example, look at how many utilities these guys have. They got like 8 different utilities that actually solve business problems. So they're able to retain the attention they get, which helps insulate against the dump. So, but that's rare. It's the exception to the rule. You're not going to be able to pull that. Certainly, if all you're doing is NFTs, you're not going to be able to do that same thing. That's why I don't want them to go to Shillers. If you get to the point where you're already at that end game, right? You're near a penny, and your volume's staying high, and your liquidity staying high, and your market cap staying high, that it doesn't matter if you pay these guys $10,000 and they dump. Who cares? Because you're in the millions and millions of dollars. That's one thing. I would still rather not see it, but at least there would not be a negative impact on your investors. That's my point. If you're raw new, it's like, no, it's too early. We don't know enough about the success of the project to even justify doing it. And I'd rather not investor money go to that kind of crap. I'd rather see that we succeed on our own. So, again, in summary, I am and have been and likely always will be bullish about ParaToken. Always. I've not sold a single one, mostly because I can't. But even if I could, I would probably take profit if I were in a position of profit to a significant degree. With the money I put in it, it would have to be significant profit. Like, I wouldn't take like a $10 profit. It wouldn't make any sense because the money I got in there now surpasses everything else I got. So it would have to be pretty good amounts of profit. But at that point, my taking profit would be nothing to the project. It would not cause any harm to the project because I'm taking profit, not dumping on it. Even if I were to dump on it, it still wouldn't cause, well, it would now, to be honest, but I wouldn't because that doesn't make sense. I would rather just take profits. I'm not at profit. I'm going to hold it until such time I'm at sufficient profit, and then I would take profit and then buy off dips. But I need to see more volume in order to justify that. When volume's low, there's no reason for me to do any of that stuff. So I'm personally in a good position and I feel good about the project and I feel good about it long term and I want to see it succeed. And I'd love to see everybody benefit that's still holding. There aren't very many holders, but I'd love to see the ones that are there benefit from that because there's no reason, based on what I saw, the tokenomics, there's no reason this dude can't perform just as well as Satama. And frankly, Satama's about, it keeps fluctuating on the low end of the price. It's at 7 zeros, about to go back down to 8. So it's not that far off from that. Satama took a few months to get to that point of where it is now. But the point is the velocity of Satama was way up there. And that's mostly because Satama didn't go after Shillers up front. It kind of built and built and built, and then it created the community and did da da da. And then they brought in Shillers, but by that point, there wasn't really much money to be made. Then the failed Vegas event happens. Then they all dump, and now they're still dumping, dumping, dumping because of what's happening. But I think my summary again is we have to get to the point where we rely on our own merits. And I know it's hard, and I'm not suggesting it's the easiest thing to do, but I do think it's necessary that we get to where we succeed on our own. Second, I think that it's harder to succeed if all we're doing is NFTs and we have to have that strong utility that makes it justify why we should buy into a thing like an Everrise. And I know that's not easy, and don't pretend that it is. I'm saying that that's necessary because I think the investors are getting smarter and they're not as patient, I don't think, with just NFTs and gaming. I think we have to have more utility. ParaToken's utility, core message, core sentiment of what they started with is is a problem that should solve itself if we do it right. But we have to stay away from toxicity as we do that, and that means that people that we know from track record are likely to damage the project. We don't want those kind of people. However, I don't support a ban because somebody says, hey, we should not go this way, and I'm not going to support it. As an investor, I'm your boss. All the investors are your boss. So we should be listening to those. It sounds like they're listening now. It sounds like they may have had rogue admins. I will gladly understand and appreciate that if that's the case, and I will applaud them if that's now the stance going forward and they actively work to prevent that happening to anybody else or me, to where we are embracing feedback even when we don't like it. Because guess what? The feedback we don't like is probably very helpful, and we can help avoid some of these issues. We're so far down now on ParaToken, it's going to be really hard to get it back up. Impossible? No, absolutely not. Because there are tokens out there, including the one I was going to cover. It's got twice as many holders and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. I understand why it's on the decline, but ultimately it doesn't do anything. Kishimoto doesn't do anything. Shirio doesn't really do anything. Shibnobi doesn't really do anything. We see that a lot of these don't really do anything, but yet they're managing to get the volume to drive the price up. So there's got to be something there. If you have nothing and you can drive the price up, that's all marketing and hype. You couple that with utility like Everrise, which is way above any of the ones I just mentioned, and it means one answer. We've got to focus on utility. We've got to focus on something that's going to keep people, not just get people. And that's hard. And it starts with strong community. I honestly think ParaToken's Discord is a very strong community, at least right now, because nobody's there. I think their Telescam is horrible. Great that they unlocked it so I can get updates, but generally speaking, it just Telescam in general is a terrible platform. It's horrible. It always has been. And they've worked to do YouTube AMAs, they've worked to do other things to stay involved. I just think the next step, make sure to get on neutral platforms, not the ones that are just there to shill. Neutral platforms that will hit you with hard questions that are not, that are regular investors and they can prove that they're investors, so that we can say, no, I'm an investor on this thing and this is what it is. And this is how I work. And I want to ask these questions because I'm seeing price movement that I don't agree with. And I'd like to get your answer about what we're going to do about it. And then hopefully together create a plan of action that moves it forward so we all can eat. I personally believe that that's the right answer. People can disagree with me. I accept your disagreement, but my goal is to simply expose the world to what is essentially a beautiful project. But it's hard for me to have advocated it if I see that their admins and devs are triggered and don't want the smoke. If they truly want the smoke and they're no longer triggered, I can now advocate for them. And I want to advocate for them because I honestly think anybody who's not bought into ParaToken is going to miss the train. Gap band, I believe 1982. I want people to benefit. I want people to see. And then also the mission that they're doing or that they are saying they're going to be doing, we want to see that happen. I think everybody will want to see that happen. So, all I'm saying to everybody listening, I believe ParaToken's a strong project. I've always believed it's a strong project. I believe it's one of the strongest projects out there right now. I believe it's a good team of people. I don't believe it's a rug pull at all. I don't think it's close to a rug pull. I don't think you would ever have a situation where I believe his name's Lee, in charge of the project, would go in an AMA like we saw with Satama very recently, where somebody puts money in just to ask, is this a rug pull? I don't think ParaToken would ever have such a thing because they don't behave like a rug pull. But then I go into Discord and I see people ask that very same question. Now I know we got a problem because with Satama, you can kind of expect why people would think that it could rug pull eventually because there's been such a lack of transparency. There's been so many issues with Satama. Paratoken has that same lack of transparency, but they've been actually working to remedy it. It's different than Satama. So I don't want to see people thinking it's a rug pull. However, when the price is this far down, they're going to expect it got pulled. That means we got to fix it. That means we got to make some hard decisions and we have to accept the smoke and we can't let emotions get in the way of what we need to do, which means we got to take it on the chin and let people provide advice and suggestions and opinions. And if they're doing that now, kudos. I'm saying I haven't seen it yet. I look forward to seeing it. I have invited them on the show again to have the conversation. But at the end of the day, I'm a straight shooter in a world of sensitivity. I will never apologize for being a straight shooter because, as again, I think if you listen to the totality, this now has gone 34 minutes, you will believe I have been pretty much respectful the whole time. But I'm frustrated because it's needless because we're dealing with a beautiful project that should be way higher than it is. And it's unfair because of a triggered admin who decided to ban me instead of listening to my guidance that would have helped them avoid this price right here because we could have gotten ahead of this and avoid them tanking it. And who knows where it could have been. We might have had our first millionaires by now if we had not allowed that to happen. That's how strong this is. That's how strong the community is. That's how strong the volume was. That's how strong things were moving for this thing before they even start talking to Jake Gaines. So I that's my opinion. I stick with it and I always will stick with it. I look forward to them coming on the show. If they are willing to come on the show, I will welcome them on the show. I will thank them for the project. I will thank them for the opportunity to talk. But at the end of the day, I'm a straight shooter in a world full of sensitivity, and I will not apologize for what I see are things that are easily fixed because this one is one that's gold. I believe it's gold. And I'm not telling you to invest. I'm telling you to take a look at it and decide for yourself. Don't focus on the Telescam because Telescam is garbage itself. Focus on the token. And if you know how to read the code, run it through whatever scan tools you like. I believe you'll find it's a beautiful freaking project that deserves better than what it's getting. And I want to help it get the help that it needs. Because of course the first step is admitting you have a problem. And we haven't hit that first step yet.